Hey, magical manifestors and reality creators, Ellie here. And today I'm going to share with you a very, very little known secret, one that I have reserved exclusively up until now for my consulting clients, my concierge consulting clients, and the new group of people that I have been presenting to at events. So this material is extremely, extremely new. It is also life-altering when you understand what it is that I have to share with you. So with that being said, let's take a look at what you've been doing to manifest. All right, everybody's talking about manifesting and manifesting and manifesting. And you know what? Me too. Only a few years ago, it really occurred to me that the secret of manifesting is not in the affirmations. It is not in the constant visualizations. Yes, that's true too. It is really in the language that you use every single day. So if you want to break open the trap that you're currently in and come into a world of unlimited possibilities and become a leading expert in the world of transformation, the world of a new reality, the world that is no longer constricted and confined by the language of dead people, then this following conversation is going to be the beginnings for you. So I want to backtrack a little bit so that you understand who I am. So my name is Ellie Molina. I'm an educator, I'm a consultant, I'm a psychic, and I've written an Amazon bestseller, Children Who Know How to Know. And I'm also a concierge consultant to people that you may recognize in celebrity magazines, through their Netflix films. Perhaps you've seen them at the Grammys, you've heard of them in magazines, and you've seen them on stage. And irregardless of who these people are, I also work with other people who are really interested in creating a better life for themselves and creating a better life for others on the planet. And that is my clientele, and there'll be a link to my bio at the end of this video. In the meantime, I'm on a mission, and the mission has been and has been all of my life is that it's about human potential and the abilities that we have as humans. So, first thing is to recognize how and why we are and have been trapped in language. So, here's the sad truth. The language that you and I are speaking currently right now, without the awareness that I have, the language that we're speaking is the language that our cave ancestors spoke. Oh, yeah, sure, they grunted a little bit and they used a different vocabulary. However, the message was the same. The vocabulary and the worldview has not changed. So the words have changed. The idea and the concept behind them have not changed. So let's think about that for a little bit. Think about our ancestors. Think about cave people. What were they concerned about? They were concerned about survival. They were concerned about where they were going to get something to eat, protecting themselves. They had fear. And you know what? All of that translated into the worldview that we today have inherited from them. So we're basically speaking the language of dead people. We are thinking the language of dead people. We are trapped in a framework, a matrix, so to speak, of the language of dead people. And on top of all of this, what we inherited is a worldview where there's something wrong. So think about how often you've heard people say to you, "Oh, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with him? What's wrong with them? Oh, why is there question for you? Why does there have to be something wrong?" Well, you haven't even thought about it probably, and you're just using that phrase because you've inherited it from somewhere and someone before. So now let's get to look at what would it take to A, recognize this framework that we're in, this inherited matrix, and see all the ways in which this is limiting us. So first of all, language is unseen magic, and that's just what's so. And language can either be a trap, it can be a cage, or it can be liberating. So I'm going to give you some examples. First, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Helen Keller. So if you do know who Helen Keller is, this is great. And if you have never heard of Helen Keller, well, I'm going to put a link in here also so that you can go look up Helen Keller and find out who she was and why she was so important to the history of language and the women's movement, and also to people with disabilities. But for now, let's take a look at what life was like before language, because most of us can probably not remember what life was like before language, because we would have been about 2 years old or 3 years old. So if we look at it like this, what was life like before we could speak? Well, we were basically in what is known as the void. And one of the things that I love about Helen Keller and her work is in her book, Helen Keller was in the void before she met Annie Sullivan, her teacher. And what that looked like is that Helen, this is a quote from her book. Helen says, "Once I knew only darkness and stillness. My life was without past or future, but a little word from the fingers of another fell into my hand that clutched at emptiness, and my heart leaped to the rapture of living." Helen Keller. So think about this. Helen Keller was in the dark. She was blind and she was deaf, and she could not speak. She could not hear. She could feel. And imagine being in that world. That is truly the world of the void. And everything was dark and black for her. Nothing had meaning. There was no past, there was no present, there was nothing. And so for her, discovering the meaning of language, learning to use language, having water flow through her hands with Annie typing the symbols on that, that moment was liberation for her. And on that day, Helen Keller learned 30 new words. Now, what about us? Is language liberation for most of us? And I'm going to say language has been and continues to be a cage until we learn to break free of this. So, what does that mean? All right, it means that we're trapped in a linguistic matrix that has the possibility to either limit us or unlock us into unlimited perceptions and abilities. So, where Helen Keller had to fight her way out of language, many of us have to, I'm sorry, Helen Keller had to fight her way into language. Many of us have to fight our way out of language. And so, what we want to look at again is living inside a linguistic mold. So, in this uninherited, unconscious language that we have inherited from our dead ancestors and the dead ancestors before them, we're going to take a look at what this means and what it is and what it will take for us to break free of these constrictions that are tying us to this matrix that is keeping us locked, keeping us sick, keeping us unhappy, and in many cases, for other people, for some people, keeping them broke. So you want to take a look at that. And so one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to look at our worldview. We have a worldview that exists right now that I said to you before, where there is something wrong. And we live in this worldview that there's something wrong. I was thinking about the time that I heard a mother talking to her baby. A baby was crying, and the mom started immediately, "What's wrong with her? What's wrong with her?" Well, guess what? There's nothing wrong with her. She was either tired, cranky, hungry, needed to be changed, passing gas. So rather than say, "What is wrong with her?" perhaps the question could have been, "What is my baby looking to tell me?" Right there, that sentence alone, that awareness in a linguistic shift will alter the perception of that person speaking's life. It will alter the perception of their worldview. It will alter the perception of what they believe is possible and what they believe they can create. The baby will also learn that there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with crying. So again, this is inherited. So I'm going to come to a word that you might have heard lots of times over the last few decades about what the importance and significance is of this word being removed from your vocabulary. And guess what this word is? It is should. So now it's interesting. I've done some cultural work and I have noticed that the word should appears in almost every single culture, whether it is Eastern or Western. It is here in the culture. And should happens to reflect criticism and that there's something wrong. So the word should is often coded in guilt, in shame, or in pressure, or again, really basically not good enough. It implies that authority outside of yourself is telling you what to do. It overrides your internal truth also. And guess what? It makes you wrong. And if it makes you wrong, it makes you not good enough. And therefore, if you're not good enough, you're going to go look to fix yourself because you're going to think that you're broken or that there is something wrong with you. All right, so now every time you use the word should, I would like you to start practicing to pay attention of how you feel. Oh, I should have done that. Well, if you're in tune with your body, you are going to recognize that that word makes you feel pretty crappy. And when other people tell you, oh, you know what, you should have done that this morning and you should have done this morning, you're probably going to feel either bad or not good enough and have a little bit of a rebellious streak in there. So, what I'd like you to practice for the next few days is even catching what happens when you use should. And then what happens when you stop using should? What does your body do? And then you can replace it with, oh, I could, or I choose, or I might want to, or I feel drawn to, and see what happens then. All right, now the next one that I'm going to ask you to, this limits our possibilities. It constricts us, it keeps us choked in the old matrix in a world where there's something wrong. And we're aspiring to enter into the new earth, a world where there's going to be unlimited possibilities and miracles and magic. And I'm going to tell you a secret. You're not going to access it through the language that you are using in this current worldview. My clients access this because they have learned a new worldview and they have learned how to use vocabulary differently. And that provides access to another realm of possibility. So let's go back and look at this next word that people are always using, myself included, when I don't catch it, and that is try. So when we're trying to do something, you can't. You can either do it or not do it. If you're trying, you're halfway in. So you can replace try with I'm going to do this. I am willing to do this. I'm open to doing this. I'm exploring it. I'm practicing. And then that will create momentum instead of a hesitation. Okay, and the other one, and I love this one. And on our next video, we're going to get into it a little bit more. How many times have I heard new clients call me and here's what they say? Oh, Ellie, I'm going to try to figure it out. I've been trying to figure it out. And guess what trying to figure it out is? It's logic's trap door. It assumes that the mind alone is responsible for answers and it puts pressure on the cognitive system to deliver. However, in the psychic realm, in the intuitive realm, in the higher consciousness realm, it doesn't come through figuring it out. It arrives through awareness and it arrives through trust and it arrives through listening. So, again, the brain will go into an old pattern of looking to the past in order to try to figure it out. And truthfully, if you had figured it out before in the past, then you'd be able to do it now. And since you haven't been able to do it in the past, and you're looking to use the old framework to succeed in the future with an old operating system that is invalid in the future, you're just running a loop. So rather than saying, oh, I'm going to try to figure it out, you could say, I'm going to allow information to come to me. I'm going to be open to the guidance that I receive from my higher self, or I'm just going to allow the information to come to me. And more than anything, this information does come. We call it downloads. You could be in the shower, you could be running, you could be swimming, and all of a sudden there is that download, that thing that you have been trying to figure out. So get ready for this subtle shift which will have a big impact. So I'm going to ask you to start looking at how many times people say to you, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with this? And then stop doing it yourself. Catch yourself mid-sentence and then say, well, you know what? There's nothing wrong with me. I'm just speaking in a limited worldview. That's all I'm doing. I'm using an old matrix. I'm using the matrix of cave people. So, with that being said, join me next week. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation. Leave comments in the chat, subscribe to the channel. I am going to tell you that if you follow along in the next few weeks, I'm going to teach you how to have a new worldview that will cause and create miracles for yourself and others in your life. Thank you. Have a wonderful day, and I appreciate your listening. Take care. Be well.